Hi, I'm Julie Neckley, and I wanted to make a quick video on why Scorpio is the most wonderful sign of the zodiac. And I don't mean that people born when the sun was in Scorpio are the most wonderful of all people, but we have to remember that all of the signs are present in everyone in different ways, in different locations. And also we have to remember that the 12 signs are sort of like the 12 elements that make up all events in life, everything in life. And they also represent 12 higher spiritual powers. Like, I'm pretty sure if you prayed to Scorpio that he would answer your prayers, although I've never done it. So why is Scorpio the greatest? Scorpio is the greatest because Scorpio represents love, specifically passionate love. Specifically passionate love that grows more passionate over time. Sexual passionate love that grows more sexual and more passionate over time. And this is sort of, on the one hand, in our culture, like all of the movies and myths are sort of about this sort of love, but at the same time, we sort of see it as something that doesn't really exist. We seem to believe in two things. We believe in the initial thrill and infatuation of love, like basically like the dopamine rush that people might experience in the first year or whatever. Some people seem to experience that, at least. I don't think I do, but and then we also believe in this kind of like saturnine, duty-bound love. Like, I get up every morning and I choose to love her. So it's kind of like you're loving someone long-term by being there for them. Not necessarily because you're like feeling it, but you're still sticking by them even when it sucks and you don't love them anymore. You don't feel the same way, basically. But what Scorpio is about is the ability to feel the same way about someone over time, so that your feelings don't actually change. In fact, your feelings grow stronger and deeper and more powerful and more passionate. And this doesn't just apply to people and romantic relationships. It also applies to anything that a person has a relationship with. Like, it could apply to your relationship with God, or it could apply to your relationship with your work. Like, maybe rather than your work starting to feel ho-hum over time, you actually develop greater and greater passion for it. You find it more enchanting, more fulfilling. So you can see why why Scorpio is such a wonderful sign, because in life, the way things are currently set up, people are frequently having to choose between two things, like thrill, excitement, emotional fulfillment, and novelty, or on the one hand, honoring their commitments, being like a strong and respected member of society by, doing what they're supposed to do, sticking with their wife, their marriage, their job, whatever. So they're like torn between wanting to feel alive and wanting to be responsible, right? Whereas Scorpio is the sign that reconciles those two things, because both of those things kind of suck, Like, oh yeah, you have like a long marriage because you were willing for it to suck. It doesn't sound that romantic, But Scorpio is the solution to that, because Scorpio is the ability to feel the same thing over time, to maintain feelings of love, to maintain feelings of passion, and to maintain the rush, the excitement. And I would add that it's not even just in relationship to people, jobs, whatever. It's also in relationship to life itself. Because Scorpio represents eternal life, right? And what would the point of eternal life? Some people like eternal life would be torture because you would just get more and more bored. It's like without Scorpio, eternal life would be torture. Which is kind of ironic, because when we talk about eternal life, we talk about like heaven and angels and stuff, and sometimes people are like, well, that sounds kind of boring, And then Scorpio is all about like spiders and witches and piles of shit and sewage and stuff. And so it's like, that's like the true sign that represents eternal life. So what does that mean? That eternal life would be like a permanent swim through shit? No. What it means is this, that there's a reason that people lose passion, lose emotion, even lose their feelings for life over time. And the reason is basically a buildup of shit. They don't want to deal with shit. They don't want to look at things that are gross, that are disgusting, that are disturbing, that cause them pain, that cause them shame. They don't want to deal with the dark side. So the dark side builds up on their soul and their emotions like plaque until they just don't feel anything anymore. And their best hope of feeling anything is to try to get the dopamine rush from doing something new. But even that dopamine rush will be a little less shiny than the last time they got a dopamine rush. So even that is like slightly diminishing returns, similar to an addict, but that's all they have. So what Scorpio represents is more or less the ability to feel what you don't want to feel, to see what you don't want to see, to face what you don't want to face, to deal with what you don't want to deal with, so that over time you can stay equally alive because you're not having a plaque build up, but you can even get more alive because you're actually digging new tunnels in your heart. Or in a relationship, you're actually digging new tunnels, new channels for energy to flow through between you and the other person, so that it actually becomes more exciting and more alive over time. So it's basically about one, being willing to deal with shit. And one thing I always find really, it's sort of a paradox, I guess, because like, let's say having a clean house. Let's say you're like a really finicky person. You might not have a clean house because, like, I mean, sometimes I'm like this. You see like some scary corner filled with gunk. You don't want to touch it. It's too gross. You can't deal with it. And so over time, because you don't like gross stuff, your house starts to get gross. You know what I mean? So it's sort of like this paradox. If you're too averse to things that are bad, whatever you're too averse to starts accumulating in your life, basically. I mean, that's one thing, like, I think that's one reason why we do things like watch horror movies. And I was going to like force myself to watch horror movies every November, even though I hate them, because it's like, I think what horror movies represent is being willing to look at things that we find too disturbing or too disgusting to look at. Being willing to like confront them. And especially, I like the horror movies where a person, I mean, well, I've only seen one. It's called The Black Phone. And, you know, it's basically like the kid, he kills his murderer, you know, and then and in the end, he's not scarred. He actually feels more powerful, or he kills this serial killer. And in the end, he's not scarred. He actually feels better and more alive than ever before. And it's like, because he faced like the most scary thing imaginable. He didn't like go into some catatonic state. He didn't like dissociate and try to live in a world of imagination. He like faced it and confronted it and destroyed it and saved other kids from being killed in the process. And then he comes out more happy and more alive than he ever was before, despite going through like the most terrifying experience. And so that's like kind of the essence of Scorpio. It's like when we're willing to confront things that are intimidating, we become more alive. When we don't want to confront things, we start to die. And through the death process, we start to seek out novelty. We start to seek out dopamine in a desperate attempt to get fresh life again. And love helps us with that, because it's like the more we are able to truly love someone, the more we're able to go places that we wouldn't have wanted to go. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to do this, I'm afraid of it, but because I love you, I'm going to do it anyway. And then through that process, we grow. So it's like the more we love, the more we can grow beyond our own limitations. And then the more we grow beyond our own limitations, the more we're forced to clear out the plaque, and then the more we receive a fresh supply of life and of passion. So, I mean, that's why I'm saying Scorpio is the best sign, because it represents love, it represents passionate love, it represents eternal life, eternal passion. I mean, what could be better than that? Thanks, I'm Julie Neclier.